Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's first video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week, 10 days for today's first video. That will take us to around the 17th of November. We'll be able to extend that beyond that with the extended GFS and Ensemble. So we're going to do around a couple of weeks. Have a look at Beijing Climate Centre at the end of the video, the next 40 days. That takes us well into December, of course. Beginning though with today's wet weather across central parts of the UK, and also there's going to be more rain coming up on Saturday. Might be a little bit of winteriness in with that as well. So we'll deal with that first of all at the beginning of this video. Just to say that this evening we're going to have the third Christmas update. So Christmas countdown started just over or just under a week ago, last Friday, 1st of November. So update number 3 for Christmas coming up for you this evening. But we're going to start off with the weather for the next few days, first of all. So this is the precipitation type forecast from Meteo France at theweatheroutlook.com. So a band of rain really stuck across parts of East Anglia, Lincolnshire, southern parts of northern England into North Wales today. And this rain is going to carry on pouring through the rest this afternoon, so there could well be more localised flooding, unfortunately. This evening, that rain is going to start edging back southwards again, pushing down through the rest of the Midlands and Wales, bringing further outbreaks of rain to those areas through this evening. And then into the early hours of the morning tomorrow, that rain gets into the southeast corner where it starts to turn lighter and patchier. And then that leaves us with a rather showery day in the east tomorrow. More showers coming in off the North Sea across those eastern parts of England, some of them getting through to Wales. But actually for Scotland and Northern Ireland, a reasonable amount of dry weather tomorrow during the day. And then into the evening, it turns dry across the whole of the country, but probably with a fairly widespread frost setting in. That's the situation at 4 o'clock Saturday morning. So, excuse me, so we've got a band of rain coming in across Ireland at 4 o'clock on Saturday morning, but otherwise most other areas are looking dry and probably with quite a hard overnight frost Friday through to Saturday. And then as we go through into Saturday, that band of rain pushes in from the west. Now, that's coming into quite cold air, and so by the time we get through to midday on Saturday, we see that the rain is pushing in across much of Northern Ireland, northwest England, down into Wales and into southwest and central parts of England. There is a suggestion of a little bit of snow in with that, particularly over the Welsh mountains. Otherwise, it's primarily rain through the morning. Notice Scotland is missing this. Now, yesterday, there was some model output suggesting that Scotland and Northern England could get a little bit of a snow event with this during Saturday morning. But this has been shunted southwards, this area of low pressure, so it doesn't look as though precipitation is going to get to Scotland, actually. So through the course of Saturday, you find that rain pushing eastwards across much of England and Wales. Outbreaks of steady rain. They're going to be cold, wet day. A little bit of hail snow could be mixed in. Again, the suggestion is particularly around North Wales, possibly into some northern parts of the Midlands. So those sort of areas, Derbyshire Peaks, Buxton, Staffordshire Moorlands, and North Wales, those sort of areas could get a little bit of snow during Saturday from this. Will be primarily over high ground. And then as we go overnight, Saturday and Sunday, that pushes out of the way. Sunday is a quieter day, probably leading to another fairly widespread frost on Sunday night. And then into Monday, there's another system coming in off the Atlantic, sort of late Sunday night into Monday. That might bring some snow to Scotland. Again, particularly over high ground, but that one could be a little bit on lower ground too, across central and northern parts of Scotland. That's how our pairs you see things. What about DWD? So this is another high-res model. So again, we've got this band of rain through this central part of the country today, really quite stuck and persistent. That pushes back southwards overnight tonight. Tomorrow, looking at a rather showery day, particularly across eastern parts of the country. And then we move through from Friday into Saturday. Widespread frost on Friday night, of course. Here comes the rain moving in from the Atlantic during Saturday morning. So a band of quite heavy rain pushes in across western areas. Now, it's a little bit further north. This is bringing some snow towards southwestern parts of Scotland there at midday on Saturday. Also a little bit suggested for northwest England and particularly again around North Wales. And then through Saturday afternoon, that pushes eastwards again, bringing outbreaks of rain to much of the Midlands, central, southern England. But this area just here, northwest England, possibly down again towards the far north of the Midlands, places like Buxton, and then going up to southwestern Scotland. Icon is bringing a bit of a snow risk to those areas, primarily over high ground, possibly to lower levels, I would have thought, across southwest Scotland and down through the Pennine chain as well. So some snow there. As I say, it's a little bit further north with that compared to what our page is showing. So how far north this system gets will determine on whether we can get some snow up towards southwestern parts of Scotland. Obviously further south of that, anywhere south of the Midlands, you're just going to be talking about more cold November rain, unfortunately. And then into Saturday night, that system pushes southeastwards. The rain sort of dies out on it, and then we go dry and cold Sunday into Monday, probably another widespread frost. And then into Monday, here comes the next weather system. Again, this could bring some snow in across Scotland, particularly over hills, but not exclusively so, with rain elsewhere, and that's as far as we can go with the high-res icon model 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, where things are looking rather drier inland, but showers peppering the coast. Whether there's quite enough here for snow watch, I'm not sure. We may do a snow watch tomorrow evening, but as I say, I'm not sure it's quite enough to justify it, but we will keep a close eye on it anyway over the next few days, or over the next day or so, I suppose, given we're talking about Saturday. Right, so these are the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts from the Penn State University for the next week to 10 days. We've got the ECM WF here on the top, and the GFS, which we'll have a look in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure and low pressure are being moved around by jet stream running above. It extrapolates high pressure blue to low pressure. These are being flowcharts for the next 7 to 10 days, takes us into the second half of November, takes us to the 17th of November. So we've got northern blocking here with the ECM, above average heights extending through the Arctic there, and also down into eastern parts of Europe as well. There's a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, that's the Azores High, pulled out into the middle of the Atlantic, and then a trough of low pressure covering much of western Europe. The flow on the jet is going something a little bit like that, placing us on the cold side of the jet stream still, pushing cold air into this trough of low pressure. So the ECM looks cold and unsettled, really, even as we go into the second half of November. It is trying to establish a somewhat milder westerly flow, but as long as we have this cut-off trough, cut-off low to the south, we will always be pulling down quite cold air into that trough of low pressure from the north. And obviously with this northern blocking that we've got up here, that tends to send the jet stream southwards in that sort of direction. The GFS is very similar, so again lots of high pressure within the northern latitudes and extending down into eastern parts of Europe and western Russia. A weakened ridge in the middle of the Atlantic from the Azores High, deep trough of low pressure across eastern America. They're going to be very cold in the next week to 10 days, and also across the west of Europe too. Flow of jet is going something like that. So it's trying to re-establish sort of a typical westerly flow, but the jets remain diving southeastwards and going into that cut-off trough that's sitting there over sort of southern parts of France, and that of course entrenches cold air into the trough of low pressure and allows colder air to move in from the Atlantic. So yes, we are going to have a go at re-establishing a milder westerly flow and pushing the jet stream further northwards, but then it dies southwards around the trough and just keeps us into pretty cool and unsettled conditions. These are the GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. We're at Carlisle today, another suggested place for this section of video. If you'd like to have your local town or city featured within this part of video, then please email us at gavsweathers@gmail.com and let us know, or you can ask us within our social media accounts or on the Gavs Weathers YouTube channel or the gavsweathers.com comment section. And we're always happy to feature your local town or city in this part of the video. So the red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average for Carlisle. We're starting off below average at the moment. We're going to go even colder actually over the next few days. Really the next week is solidly below average. There's no sign of anything mild average coming up, certainly up to the middle of November. That's that period just there. Beyond that, it looks like we keep things generally quite cool actually, even into the second half of the month. You remember yesterday we looked at these ensembles, and there was a bit of a warming trend, actually, into the second half of November. That's been flattened off by the GFS and the GFS ensembles over the past couple of runs. So now, generally, we're keeping most of those ensemble members on the cool side. I think you'll notice this thick green line just here. That is the GFS operation run. We'll look at that in a moment. A little bit of a cold outlier, that one. And we will look at that in a moment. That's a 6 o'clock operational GFS run. Precipitation-wise, becoming more unsettled, really. So a fair amount of dry weather for the north of the country over the next few days. But it is getting more unsettled as we go through the weekend and into next week. Temperature anomalies from the 7th to the 15th of November are below average. It's going to be another colder than average 7 days coming up. So widely for the UK and for Ireland, for most of Western Europe actually, below average, very cold across some parts of Norway. Precipitation anomalies for the week from the 7th to 15th of November, north-south split. So northern areas are drier than average, particularly for Scotland, and then for England and Wales, though, it looks rather wetter than average. So classic north-south split. And again, I suppose it's indicative of the fact that the jet stream is probably doing something quite unusual, and we're on the cold side of a jet, probably doing something like that, and allowing these areas of low pressure to go in that sort of direction, which leaves Scotland closer to higher pressure. Won't necessarily be high pressure over Scotland, but certainly got higher pressure around here. And the jet stream doing something like that means that the wettest conditions are continuing to be likely for England and Wales. Over in America, it's a very cold scene as well across eastern parts of the state. So proper west-east divide. Western states significantly warmer than average in the weekend, whereas central eastern states are much colder than average, particularly cold through these midwestern areas. Anomalies there are kind of like 16 to 20 Fahrenheit below average. Remember, in America, they use the Fahrenheit scale rather than the centigrade scale. So very cold on both sides of the Atlantic, or it's cold on both sides of the Atlantic. Have it cold and average on the western side of Europe, and we have it colder than average on the eastern side of America. Precipitation-wise for America, many areas are drier than average, especially so in these western states, significantly drier than average there. But some of that drier weather does extend into those colder states as well through these northeastern areas. Down in the south, it actually looks quite wet, especially around Texas, perhaps. Coming back closer to home, this is how the GFS is looking for Sunday. So we get rid of that area of low pressure. It's going to bring rain and a risk of a little bit of hill snow on Saturday. Getting rid of that on Sunday, building a ridge across the country. Sunday should be a drier, quiet today, but it will still be quite cold. Next area of low pressure is rolling in off the Atlantic, though, as we go from Monday into Tuesday. Winds remain chilly from a northwesterly direction, and the low pressure will bring further showers, if not longer spells of rain. We keep these cool and unsettled conditions going into the middle of next week. Low pressure is diving in there around the middle of the week from Greenland, which is quite unusual. Talked about this in the videos quite a lot lately. We've got low pressure there on Wednesday around Greenland. Look where the low pressure is as we get into Thursday. It's dived down into the UK and it's sitting over top of the UK. So again, when we see low pressure decoupling from Iceland and Greenland and sinking down across the west of Europe, that is quite an unusual thing for low pressure to do, particularly at this time of year when it tends to be anchored and rooted around Iceland and Greenland. The upshot of that is that we get another shot of colder air pushing in from the north in the second half of next week. That's how we look on Friday, 15th of November, in a cold east to northeasterly wind. This was a month or so on. That would be very wintry scenario. That low pressure would bring quite a lot of snow with it, and then those east to northeasterly winds following along behind the low as it sinks down into France, they would bring cold air out of Scandinavia. Of course, it's only the 15th of November, so we're just talking about, again, probably risk of hill snow in the north, and just a cold and raw and very miserable sort of east-northeasterly wind setting in at the end of next week. Remember, this GFS run was a little bit of a cold outlier. Heading up towards day 10, which takes us to the 17th of November, we keep it cold. Low pressure remains to our east. High pressure is blocking both to the north of the country, northwest and northeast. The low pressure is centred over Germany and the Low Countries. That will feed further showers, or maybe some longer spells of rain into the east. Perhaps a little bit of risk of hill snow again coming through with that. Just generally a cold and seasonal type feel. In the more extended range, this is how we look with the GFS run. So it all starts to go rather messy, really, as we head up towards the end of it. It gets us to the 23rd of November. We're a bit in between there, trying to re-establish a westerly flow, but not with any great conviction. Heights are still relatively high to the north. It probably would turn a little bit milder though. Winds are turning into the south there by the 23rd of November, so that perhaps increases the temperature a little bit, but it's not really with conviction. It's not a return of west-south westerlies with any great conviction at all, and there would be a further risk, I think, from that things could go quite cold and unsettled once again. You'll notice that overall the jet stream still seems to be on that northwest-southeast alignment, and so these areas of low pressure could start to move in that direction again and allow colder air to come back in from the north. Certainly wouldn't rule it out. This is how the GM is looking. So again, on Sunday we get rid of that area of low pressure, but not for long. More lows are coming in off the Atlantic early next week, bringing further showers, longer spells, rain, risk of hill snow up in the north too. Then we have this area of low pressure sinking in from Greenland and Iceland in the second half of next week. That brings further rain and potentially hill snow with it too. That finishes up across France by the time we get through to Saturday the 16th of November. We're back pulling in these cold northeasterly winds once again. And that's how it looks as we finish up on day 10, which is Sunday the 17th of November. Still generally cold. High pressure is blocking to the north and to the northwest of the country. Low pressure is to our south and east. The winds are in from an east to northeasterly direction. Looks pretty cold, that, and certainly for northern areas there will be a risk of some hill snow. And then we've got the ECMWF looking like this. So once again, we get rid of that low pressure on Sunday. A drier, quieter, but quite cold down Sunday. Then low pressure's coming back in off the Atlantic as we go from Monday into Tuesday. Then into Wednesday, we get an area of low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. So we've got low just there on Wednesday. By Thursday, that low is over England and Wales. So that's doing something a little bit different, but it brings more heavy rain. At the end of next week, though, we finish up in line with the other two models, taking that low pressure into France and pulling in these east to northeasterly winds. And then up to day 10, which is Sunday the 17th of November, that's how we're looking. So we're trying to have a go at re-establishing a westerly flow, but again, not with any particular conviction. I think that will still be probably relatively cool up to day 10. This is the precipitation forecast based on that ECM run. So today's deluge, of course, across the northern parts of England. A little bit of snow could be mixed in with that over Welsh mountains. That rain coming back southeastwards this evening overnight, gets out of the way tomorrow. Here comes Saturday's wet weather. Now, this is bringing snow into parts of Wales and the West Midlands on Saturday morning. I think that's a little bit overdone. I would suspect snow risks are primarily over the Welsh mountains. And if it gets far enough north in towards the Pennines and the Derbyshire peaks. But that's what it's showing anyway. It is actually taking some snow into other parts of the Midlands by Saturday evening. and the rain risk is further south. Notice this system is further south compared to particularly where Icon had it, where we started off with. So there is a large margin of error with this area of low pressure. And as I say, that's taking some snow into parts of the Midlands on Saturday afternoon, but I think it's a bit overdone and a bit over the top. Into Sunday, that low pressure gets out of the way, and then we have a drier, quieter interlude on Sunday, but then in comes the next low for Monday, and that brings snow to Scotland. Again, primarily over high ground, I would have thought, but there could be some coming down to lower levels, perhaps across the north of Scotland. Rain piling in down across the south. And then into Tuesday, it's a case of sunshine and showers, really. Drier day for Tuesday. In comes the next area of wet weather for Wednesday. Heavy rain, particularly for England and Wales. And then into the second half of next week, as that low pulls away to the south, winds turn into the northeast, and it turns drier, but also cold again. Here comes the next system moving in from the Atlantic by the end of the ECM run, with patchy rain moving southeastwards. As we go towards day 10, things do look like they're drying out a little bit there, but still staying generally quite cold. These are the options on the table within the ECM ensembles today for day 10, which is getting us to the 17th of November. So we have 31 members of the ECM ensembles, including the operational and control run, with low pressure slipping away to the south. High pressure is over Scandinavia, so bringing in winds from the northeast, but gradually turning a little bit drier and quieter. However, there's these 20 just here that are very unsettled, even at day 10, with a deep trough of low pressure over the top of the country and to our north. They're bringing in probably quite cold west or northwesterly type winds. In 2 weeks' time, these are the options that we've got, which gets us to the 22nd of November. Below average heights to our south-southwest, blocking area of high pressure over Scandinavia, Scandinavian high. Winds probably from an east or southeasterly direction. Could be a little bit unsettled, especially so to the south, to the southwest, drier to the northeast. I would have thought still generally quite cold. And then 22 members here with low pressure centred over top of the country. They're going to be very unsettled and quite chilly too. There's no sign of any sustained mild weather from the ECM ensembles in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, I don't think. Finally, the Beijing Climate Centre, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down to 10-day periods. The first 10-day period will take us from the 6th to the 15th of November. The coming 10 days is cold and unsettled, with a trough of low pressure over the UK and many western parts of Europe, a ridge in the middle of the Atlantic, and some blocking to the north. Jet stream is aligned up northwest to southeast like that. So it's a good reflection of what we've got coming up in the next few days. Cold and unsettled conditions for many of us. This goes on actually into week 2, which is the 16th to 25th of November. Again, deep trough over the UK. Ridge pulled out into the middle of the Atlantic. Jet stream is set up northwest to southeast. Cold and unsettled again. This will be quite a cold November, actually, I think, if this comes off. All change for the next 10-day period, though. This takes us from the 26th of November to the 5th of December. And we get a big ridge of above-average heights then setting up over the top of the country. A dramatic change, which takes us, obviously, to much drier conditions. But with that, there will be a high risk, I would have thought, of night frost and fog. So that's what we'd have to watch out for the end of November and the beginning of December. And then we go through to the final 10-day period, taking us from the 6th through to the 15th of December. We have the above average heights then centering just to our west. Trough of low pressure, you'll notice over here, is sinking through central parts of Europe. So probably a little bit milder there, I would have thought. Winds could be coming in from the southwest. Although if we was to bat that trough across Central Europe any further west, then we would start going back to the pattern that we've had through this November, which is cold and unsettled. So a little bit inconclusive, I think, by the time we get into December. But certainly days 1 through to 10 and days 11 through to 20, first 20 days if you like, certainly those are looking cold and unsettled. Then probably going towards a frost fog type situation by the end of the month and the beginning of December, and then a bit inconclusive I think after that. That's all very speculative, but coming back to the more reasonable time frame, which is the next week to 10 days, there's no change today. It's staying cold and unsettled overall. Further bouts of rain, could be snow at times, particularly over high ground in the north, and just generally quite a cold and chilly feel. There is a little bit of a suggestion by mid-November we could be pulling in perhaps quite a cold northeasterly wind as that low pressure sinks through the UK and down into France. So quite a bit to keep an eye on over the next few days, and of course we're keeping you updated with all of the developments at Gaz Office. Don't forget, tonight we've got the third Christmas update coming up for you, so come back for that then. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.